Committee members, could you please take your seats as the ministers are here and they are quite busy ministers, so we'd like to respect their time. Welcome to the 36th meeting of the Committee of Government Ops and Estimates.
The camera should go out once you bang the gavel, that's the rule. Because the meeting is already televised by the House of Common Services.
Oh, my mistake. The cameras have to go out. Thank you. And thank you, ministers, for coming. We have before us Minister Baird and Minister Merrifield with their officials, and I'm going to try and pronounce the names correctly because I don't like my name being mispronounced. So, Madame Kormaninski, okay, and Madame Balta-Jolu, and Mr. Forrester from the Transport and from Infrastructure, and we have Doug Nevison from Finance. Ministers, we have been, this committee, as you know, you've probably appeared before it, before my time, has been studying the issue of infrastructure spending and its impact on the economy. We've had officials before us and we've had stakeholders, and basically they can't give us a concrete dollar figure of what money has flowed out because they claim that the custodian of the figures are you. So I'm hoping in the question and answer session you'll be able to satisfy this committee so that we can put this to rest. I understand both of you have opening remarks, and we will limit it to 5 minutes. We had requested that your officials stay for the second hour because we understand the ministers are busy, and I'm hoping that the officials do stay for the second hour so that the committee can continue its work just in case it has additional questions. So with that, which one is starting, Minister Merrifield or Minister Baird? Minister Baird, and I appreciate your time, so I'm going to give you 5 minutes, or if you're sharing 7 and 3, that's between the two of you, but I'll cut you off at 5. I'd rather have question and answer.
It's going to be 10 minutes between the two of us?
Yes, sir.
Great.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, these are not easy times. When the global economic downturn began to threaten Canadians' livelihoods, we sought advice to determine how they wanted the federal government to act. We were told that infrastructure spending had to be part of Canada's response to the global economic downturn, and that was indeed one of the central features of our response. We accelerated our existing infrastructure funding. That's been one of the great successes. We streamrolled and fast-tracked approvals and made more money available sooner. We committed almost $12 billion in new funding for ready-to-go infrastructure projects. Les investissements que nous effectuons dans l'infrastructure.
The investments we have made in infrastructure are truly without precedent. In a few months, municipal administrations, in partnership with our government and with provincial governments, have answered the call.
$1 billion to more than 5,000 infrastructure projects as part of Canada's Economic Action Plan. When combined with contributions from our funding partners, the total commitment to projects is over $22 billion. From the new infrastructure stimulus fund alone, fully 75% of all projects that were slated to begin in 2009 were underway as of September 1st. According to John Beck, Chairman and CEO of construction giant Aecon Group, I've been in this business for 45 years. I've never seen as strong a pipeline of work as we see today. And Bill Ferreira of the Canadian Construction Association stated, we are starting to see a lot of competition for infrastructure projects, and he went on to say, many of our members say that they are very busy and it will be one of the busiest construction seasons on record. By working with our partners in the provinces, territories and municipalities, we are leveraging matching funds from each level of government. This means we will be able to go 3 times as far with 3 times the results and 3 times the number of jobs created than could have been possible if we had just sent the money to municipalities alone.
We are working with provincial premiers such as Danny Williams, Dalton McGuinty and Gordon Campbell, and with municipal leaders of all political stripes in order to select projects together which will create jobs, hope and opportunities for Canadian families.
The federal government is funding municipal projects identified as priorities and managed by those same municipalities. Our role is to greet light is to greenlight the projects in concert with our provincial partners, something that we've been doing at a record pace. Our government respects municipalities and has confidence in their abilities. Those who are concerned about what infrastructure projects are moving forward and where they are located should talk to the provinces and municipalities who approved each and every agreement with us. To quote the current Mississauga City Councillor and former Liberal MP Carolyn Parrish, the decisions were made by the city. And she is right. It is the provinces and municipalities who have helped determine their infrastructure needs and not unilaterally the federal government. Last week, our government unveiled an unprecedented infrastructure investment for the Johnson Street Bridge with the City of Victoria. Victoria Mayor Dean Fortin said, "Today's announcement is the largest investment Victoria has ever seen, and we are grateful for that partnership." And I know the Vice Chair would know that Mayor Fortin is not known for being a hotbed of Conservative Party supports, and we've enjoyed an excellent relationship with him. And last month, together with Toronto Mayor David Miller, we announced nearly $200 million of federal funding for more than 500 projects throughout the city. The highest per capita spending anywhere in the country is Windsor, where unemployment is the highest. And we don't have seats in these places. We are just doing what's right and making sure that we create jobs where and when they're needed. And to those who accuse the government of partisan infrastructure spending, I want to respectfully disagree, and so does Ontario's Deputy Premier, George Smitherman, who said last week, I think overall, when you see how all the infrastructure dollars that are stimulus-related have been allocated, I am pretty confident that there is going to be a very, very equitable distribution. With respect to transparency reporting, as soon as we announce a project, it's made public and posted on the web. We will continue to report on our progress to Parliament. This government has provided detailed spending plans in the original budget documents last January and in 3 follow-up reports to Canadians. And the extraordinary stimulus spending is the right thing to do. A request from the Parliamentary Budget Officer for a status update on the infrastructure projects under the purview of Transport and Infrastructure Canada was received on September the 2nd. This is a substantial request, and the reply to the PBO on September 16th indicated that. Of all the 5,000 announced projects that are currently verified on a project-by-project basis, this process is nearing completion, and today we began sending the information to the PBO as per his request. Our government continues to focus on getting projects approved and creating jobs. Together with our funding partners, I think we're having a meaningful impact on job creation.
Minister Merrifield.
Yes, I want to say thank you for inviting us to come and to be able to give you as much information as we have with regard to infrastructure. My specific responsibility is working with Minister Baird with regard to Alberta, Saskatchewan, and some of the Crown corporations. I'll explain some of that. Really, our focus is jobs and the economy, making sure that we get through this very difficult economic time on behalf of Canadians. Canadians are coming out of it. We didn't ask for this recession. We didn't cause it in any way, but we certainly are dealing with it as best we know how. I have most of my remarks will be focused in on Alberta, Saskatchewan. That's my specific role with regard to the infrastructure dollars. We have worked very closely with the municipalities and the provincial governments, and this is a very important part of it, understanding that they put up 2/3 of the money, and we leverage 3-to-1 as much as possible, so we dovetail alongside in a coordinated effort, not only in choosing the projects, but also funding the projects and how they're administered. So we work very closely with them in the whole area of the stimulus funding and actually acceleration of the $33 billion, which is the Building Canada funds. So they have been accelerated as well. In Saskatchewan, we have listened to those small communities, communities such as biobanks. They selected the projects for quality drinking water. Because it's important to know where our priorities were, where the province's priorities and municipalities' priorities. No question, water, wastewater was number 1. Roads, bridges, highways came in usually number 2. Then transit and also ring roads became very, very hot and very, very important to the areas of Alberta, Saskatchewan. I believe that's reflected right across the country. I'm pleased to report to the committee that of the 28 members of Parliament in Alberta, I have not heard one complaint of any of the infrastructure spending, and that includes the member from Edmonton Strathcona, who is the only opposition member. In fact, this is what she said, is I tell you the truth, I've noticed an awful lot of money in my coming into my riding, and that was the member from Edmonton Strathcona in the Edmonton Journal of September 25th of 2009. So we have to understand that the leveraging part of this is very, very important, making sure that we leverage 2-to-1 3 to 1 wherever possible, and we've been able to do that, and I can get into the numbers in the question and answer more clearly. But I wanted, in the time I have left, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the Crown corporations because they have a significant amount of stimulus as well. Via rail, as many of you who have been watching very closely, because we have 15 Crown corporations under transport, or 16, 15 under my jurisdiction. Via rail is one. $407 million in the Economic Action Plan, primarily to be able to deal with refurbishing of the locomotives, making sure that they are more energy efficient, more environmentally acceptable, and also able to provide the service for Canadians long into the 21st century. The corridor between Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal corridors where the bulk of the money is being spent with regard to rail upgrades, and at the end of that we'll have a half-hour shorter train ride when it goes to Montreal to Toronto. So that is very important. Marine Atlantic is another one that is very important to us. We brought on a new Atlantic Vision ship that will help and has helped, although there's some significant problems with Marine Atlantic yet, and we were out there a week or two ago to try to address some of that and look at the long-term goals. But we have been able to invest in some of the harbour infrastructure as well as CATSA, the airport security, a significant amount of money, $355 million in the Economic Action Plan. We dare not be the weakest link when it comes to security. Our project is timely. We have to get this money out now. We have to make sure that we deal with putting people to work and getting Canadians good infrastructure. It's got to be targeted so that it's projects that are very, very important to Canadians and to a long-term sustainability and competitiveness. And believe me, it's got to be temporary. And so with that, we do see the green shoots coming. We do see some positive signs, but we have a ways to go. We just have to work hard together to be able to make these green shoots take root. Thank you.
Very much, Minister Merrifield. And we have the ministers for 1 hour, so we'll have to have very succinct. Yes.
I'm told by my staff and officials that they were informed, that the committee was informed that we could, as a team, be here for an hour, and the officials had not agreed to stay for the second hour. But I am informed that if you want to put a request in, that they could come back at a later date.
The committee had requested the officials to stay because we knew you were busy. As ministers, we appreciate it.
That's correct. That's correct. That's very correct. You did. But I think it was informed before the meeting that they could stay for 1 hour.
No. What I said was the committee had requested that they stay, and if the ministers are leaving and the department officials can stay, because that would continue we would like to bring a closure to this issue. We'd really like to put it to bed. I mean, it has been going on for too long. So if they could stay, that would be what the committee would like to do, and then close this subject. So
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think they had agreed to stay for 1 hour, and I understand you were informed of that before the meeting. The deputy informs me they're willing to come back.
Yes, Mr. Yes.
Chair, on the same point of order.
Yes, Mr. Martin.
We've got the biggest outpouring of money since like the Second World War, flying out the door at breakneck speed. We're the parliamentary committee that oversees this estimates of the spending and the veracity of the claims made by the government. I don't think the bureaucrats get to say whether they will or will not stay for the second hour of this meeting. If a parliamentary committee says we want you to stay, you stay. Ministers notwithstanding. We can't compel ministers to stay here. The House of Commons can, the committee cannot. But the bureaucrats, what have you got that's better to do? Or what else have you got to do that's so important that you can't answer a parliamentary committee about the management of these billions and billions and billions of dollars?
As I said,
Minister, it's okay. I have Madame Finley and then Mr. Jean, and then we will then bring it to a closure because I need the ministers to answer questions. Madame Paul Finley.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I share my colleagues' frustration at the lack of time. I will say that we understand that all of the department officials have a great deal of work to do, and we appreciate the work that you all do. But recognizing that one of the most important jobs for us as parliamentarians is, in fact, oversight of government spending. This is a huge outpouring of money. I would like to ask the Chair if we could ask the committee if we can get unanimous consent to ask at least the department officials to stay for the second hour, because it is now that we need these answers, and we'd very much appreciate it. Madam Chair, if we could ask for unanimous consent, I would appreciate that.
Is there unanimous consent that the officials stay? There is no unanimous consent. And Mr. Jean?
Let's be clear, Madam Chair. There was an invitation sent to the minister along with his officials. They replied that they could. There was a request for an hour and a half. They said they could spend 1 hour here. This is the second appearance by the minister, I think, in some 2 weeks of committee hearings in relation to the same issue. Certainly, he suggested that they come back at a later date on an invitation for the committee. I think that's very reasonable, and I think the request of Mr. Martin, quite frankly, is not reasonable.
Thank you, Mr. Jean. And I really, Mr. Martin.
I would like to move then that the officials be compelled to attend this committee for the second hour of this meeting, and instead of a unanimous consent, it should be put to a majority vote of this committee.
I can't have unanimous consent, but I can put it to vote. And are you asking that we ask the committee to vote whether the officials stay here for the second hour? Yes, Mr. G.
There's no notice in relation to his motion, so we need a 48-hour motion. 48-hour notice in relation to the motion.
Just 1 second. I'll consult. Instead of going into a procedural debate, I'll consult with the clerk.
Yeah, there's a 48-hour notice on that.
The clerk informs me that the 48-hour notice is not relevant in this case because the motion that Mr. Martin has put forth is in order because it relates directly to the business under consideration, and therefore I would like to call the committee to vote. Yeah, yes?
Is this motion not debatable?
It's the ruling of the chair, and the ruling of the chair is not debatable. You can challenge the chair, and we'll take a vote.
I challenge the chair, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. And the ruling of the chair is that the motion of Mr. Martin is regarded
Is debatable, and this is another motion that is debatable.
No, this is now. I made a ruling in consultation with the clerk. I made the ruling that the motion is in order because it deals with the business under consideration. Let me finish my sentence. And hence, that was the ruling. I asked you if you are challenging the ruling of the chair. You said yes. The ruling of the chair, according to Standing Order 117, you cannot challenge the chair. She can call for a vote. If you challenge the chair, she has to call a vote for the ruling. So, and you've challenged me, and we're going to call a vote then? No, the challenge is not debatable. Okay? Standing Order 117. So can we please, now that the process is I have been challenged, my ruling has been challenged in consultation with, I am consulting the clerk. The clerk informs me that that ruling, that the motion is in order. I would like to therefore pose the question. The chair has been challenged. Shall the chair's ruling be sustained? The ruling being sustained is, i.e., acceptance of Mr. Martin's motion. So all those who want to put up your hands if you, yes, sir?
If the clerk could confirm whether or not your motion itself is debatable, the challenge to the chair, is that not debatable? I understand that the motion put forward by Mr. Matten is, but if I could be so obvious as to state the obvious, which is that we're talking about a situation that is quite frankly taking away from time of members to ask the officials questions. So why don't we go past Mr. Martin? They've already come here for an hour, and we're going to spend time debating whether they're going to stay for another half an hour. It's going to take us a half an hour to debate that.
That's exactly what you're doing. I have to get the vote on my ruling. You cannot challenge the clerk because the clerk is given me advice based on the fact that the motion is in order. The motion relates directly to the business under consideration. You are challenging my ruling. I will call the vote. Those that wish to sustain the chair's ruling, please put your hands up. Those against the ruling, please put your hands up. The motion is Okay.
No, the ruling is sustained.
The ruling is sustained,
5
and
against 4.
And Mr. Martin, your motion is carried. We will now start off with the questions. Yes, now, sorry, Mr. Brown, your point of order.
My point of order was that, fair enough for your ruling, but we haven't had a discussion to discuss Mr. Martin's motion. And his motion, we should be given an opportunity to offer some input on.
Unfortunately, it's now the apple before the cart, and the cart has gone forward.
But you called for a vote on your ruling. Did you call for a vote on his motion? Was that a double vote?
Okay. Mr. Brown, I'll explain. Mr. Martin put a motion, and I consulted the clerk. I was told that it is in order. I stated it is in order. Mr. Jean challenged that ruling. When a ruling is challenged, and I'm sorry, ministers, you have to put up with this. When the ruling is challenged, then I have to, under procedures, I have to call a vote. We voted, and Mr. Martin's motion is deemed to have stayed. There is no other debate. So I think we would like to have some input from the ministers, and we will start with our first, Mr. Jean, you had a point of order.
A ruling from the clerk in relation to this, Madam Chair. This is a debatable motion, and we have the opportunity to debate his motion. Whether I challenged you or not, I was challenged your ruling. That has nothing to do with the motion that Mr. Martin has put forward. That motion is fully debatable, and I want to have the opportunity to do so.
Yes. I think it was Mr. Gould first, and then Mr. Finley. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, can we vote on the motion? I haven't heard the French version. I don't know if I got the gist of what that motion was exactly.
Give me 1 second. Yeah, for the benefit of the committee, you want to have a look at the motion. You didn't understand. You wanted the motion because he had it from the floor. Because the motion is from the floor, Mr. Martin, do you have a French version of the motion, or you just presented the motion of the floor, which was relevant to the business of the committee?
I gave the motion verbally,
yeah.
But that's...
Okay, Mr. Martin, it's okay.
Yes,
I was told you can't submit it in unilingual. Madame Hall-Finley.
I might just ask, because we do actually want to hear from the ministers, if we can postpone debate on that particular motion. It relates only to asking the departmental officials to stay. If we can postpone debate on that particular issue until after the ministers have left.
Fair enough. Thank you. Shall we start with the first round of questions? Madame Hall-Finley for 8 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And once again, thank you everyone for being here. Merci beaucoup de passer au moins.
Thank you so much for being here, for giving us some of your time today.
Responsibilities as parliamentarians is in fact the oversight of government spending, and this is involving a great deal of government spending. But unfortunately, despite repeated requests and Minister Baird, you appeared before this committee many months ago in the spring, and at that time I was already asking you for answers on identification of projects and how much money had been spent. Real concern about announcements, but that announcements don't create jobs, and we asked for detail. We have continued to ask for detail. We have had very little response, and in order for us to do our jobs, our responsibility to Canadians, we then asked the Parliamentary Budget Officer to assist and to provide that information. The Parliamentary Budget Officer appeared before this committee 2 days ago, and his answer to our questions about the detail on the government spending was that he himself had not been given adequate information to be able to answer us. So I will repeat, for us to be able to do our jobs, to fulfill our responsibility to Canadians, we need this information. Now, when I asked the Parliamentary Budget Officer why he was not being provided that information, he replied that, well, I think you will have an opportunity later this week to have the Minister of Transport and Infrastructure and perhaps the Deputy Minister as well, suggesting that because he couldn't give us that information, we had to ask you. I, at this point, would very much like to ask, because I recognize your enthusiasm for being able to speak in front of a committee, Minister, and I will acknowledge your unique abilities in that regard. But we do have specific questions. Why, and I would really appreciate succinct answers. First question is, why has the Parliamentary Budget Officer not been given adequate information in order for us to do our jobs for Canadians?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I say to the member for Willowdale, thank you for the question. I'll commit to you to give just as succinct answers to the questions as your questions are. You gave a 5-minute preamble before you asked the question, so I promise you I will be less than the amount of time it took you to ask the question. As soon as an announcement is made, the information is posted on the government's website, including the project description, the exact amount, the location, and will continue to provide an unprecedented amount of information on all of our infrastructure projects being funded. In fact, in the first 7 months of the fiscal year, we committed more money in the Infrastructure Stimulus Fund than the previous Liberal government spent in 7 years. Under the previous government, all the public ever received was a press release. You really had to dig around to get even the most basic information. Earlier today, we provided more than 3 boxes of information to the Parliamentary Budget Officer.
If I may interrupt, and I don't like to do that, but what you have just given to me is exactly the same thing that we have been hearing for months. You've referred to announcements. You've referred to.
I hadn't completed my answer.
You've referred to announcements.
I hadn't completed my answer.
You referred to amounts of money.
I hadn't completed my answer.
And I will refer.
I hadn't completed my answer.
Refer to the information that we are seeing being given to the American public that includes specifics about money
Madam Chair,
actually being spent.
A point of order.
If I may finish my question.
It's a point of order.
Your answer was not answering my question, sir.
Minister and Madame Hall-Finley, I have a point of order.
Point of
Mr.
order.
G.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There has been a question asked.
Yes.
Why don't we give the opportunity to the Minister to answer it?
And Madame Hall-Finley, I need to respond to him. Okay. When a witness is here and you have your 8 minutes, you can cut off the witness if the witness is not giving you the information that you want. So that's her prerogative, and it will be your prerogative if you want to say the same thing. So I would like to now proceed with the questioning. Your point of order has been taken. It is out of order, really, because you have no right to tell another member.
She's cutting off the witness when he's given his answer. That's not just.
That's her prerogative.
That's just not against the rules, Madam, but it's rude.
That's her prerogative, and I'm moving on. Martha Hall-Finley.
I sure hope, Madam Chair, that intervention did not actually take away from the time allotted to me. And I will stress, I am asking for answers, and if the Minister is not, in fact, providing answers that are satisfactory, then I will insist on getting answers that are satisfactory. And I will say, it is not satisfactory to be told once again about announcements. Announcements do not create jobs. We have been asking, the Parliamentary Budget Officer has been asking, detailed information about money spent, about jobs that have been created. And my question was not about further detail, it was not about announcements. My question was, very specifically, why has the Parliamentary Budget Officer not been given the information that he has requested?
Well, Madam Chair, I'm going to go back to completing the answer because I think it was an important point. What I had said before I was interrupted is that earlier today we provided the Parliamentary Budget Office with even more detailed data to allow him to conduct his financial analysis per his mandate. We provided him, as I was just about to say before I was cut off, 3 boxes of information to assist him in conducting his job, and we'll continue to do that. In the United States, they did set up an agency that costs over $100 million for communications and promotion of the various infrastructure grants. We have not gone down that road with respect to telling municipalities and provinces that every day they have to define how many tons of steel have been used or how much payroll has been.
Minister, and I think this question is of relevance to everyone here as witnesses. The accountability of accounting officers within the framework of ministerial accountability. This is our law. The accounting officer of a department is accountable before, and I'm quoting from the statute, is accountable before the appropriate committees of the Senate and the House of Commons for A, the measures taken to organize the resources of the department to deliver departmental programs in compliance with government policies and procedures, B, the measures taken to maintain effective systems of internal control in the department, and C, the signing of the accounts that are required to be kept for the preparation of the public accounts. We are, as we heard from the parliamentary budget officer, repeatedly we have heard this from others as well, that there is significant frustration within the departments in not actually being able to give full information. Now, based on this, those accounting officers must have that detailed information, but they are not in a position or have not been able to give that information as the law requires. Is it not inappropriate to be putting public servants in that type of a position when they know what their obligations to us as parliamentarians, what they know what their obligations are to us and to the Canadian people, but are being prevented arguably for political reasons? Do you not believe that that's putting the civil servants in a very difficult position?
Well, I wrote that section with which you read. It was part of the Federal Accountability Act. Could you name me a single public servant who has expressed frustration?
Finish, Minister, responding? Did you finish your response? I'm sorry, I have to cut you off. We go to...
Welcome to hear it.
Minister, I'm just wondering, you just informed us that you've given the information to the budget officer. I'm wondering whether it gives the exact dollars that have flown through, because we were following the dollar signs and saying, committed, flown. Is that what he has? And will we be able to get that from him?
We delivered 3 boxes of information, the best available that we're able to present. As we get more information from the provinces and municipalities, we'll be able to forward it on.
No, but the budget
this is unique
officer
for
will
me
be
that
able
the
to
chair
give us
asks
this
questions.
information.
I haven't seen this in that. Does the chair?
No,
whose
I'm
time
just
does this come out of?
clarifying so that there's no confusion. I don't want
That's very
confusion
good of
here.
you.
All I want is have the dollars. If we ask the budget officer, is this the amount that has been spent, and he says yes, that will bring the end to the subject. Okay, we will, if that's the information. Madame Bourgeois.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Minister and Mr. Secretary of State, good afternoon and welcome. To begin, I want to express my disappointment for not seeing any figures here. What I'm particularly interested in is Quebec's position compared to the other provinces, how Quebec is doing. A little earlier, the Minister of State talked about different projects which have been launched in Alberta and throughout other provinces. I was hoping that you would come with more specific figures, especially since Quebec is important to you. So again, it would have been nice to see figures. So I'll be asking you very specific questions. Could you please tell me, both of you, how much money has been spent in infrastructure spending in Quebec? Do you have a figure for me now?
Stimulus fund, we gave Quebec a full per capita share of that, and that is something that is important to note. With the province of Quebec, we respect provincial les compétences provinciales. It's a provincial prerogative when you're dealing with provincial assets and with municipalities. On the infrastructure stimulus fund in the province of Quebec, there have been 394 projects approved with a total eligible cost of $1.320 billion, with federal funding green-lighted at $539,400,000. I hope that responds to your specific numerical requests.
I could just add with regard to specific for Quebec, because we were talking via rail as one of the Crown corporations. There is $100 million that has been allocated for the F40 locomotives that were built in Quebec. It's a contract, open contract that was bid there.
Je dois te dire que
I must also add that in the last few months, it's been a little more difficult because there are municipal elections in Quebec. And I believe that 30 days before a municipal election, we stopped making announcements, and we respected that because it's not a time to make announcements within a month of a municipal election. But I certainly hope you're happy with the numbers we gave you. Yes, thank you. Again, given the looming municipal elections, given the fact that we heard from the Quebec Federation of Municipalities, they were here last week, and they said that it seems that the money is not coming through. It's lagging somehow. So the federal funding just wasn't coming through. Given the specific federal government and Quebec agreements, are you going to extend deadlines for municipalities to put in requests for infrastructure spending? The infrastructure program is going to end on a specific date. So have you taken delays into account, which are due to municipal elections and the agreements you must sign with Quebec? I'm sorry, I'll respond in English to be more specific.
Funds, there are monies available that can flow to help start up costs immediately. Municipalities then, through their provinces, submit invoices, and we've committed to pay those invoices within 30 days. I am very happy to receive any concerns that you have for any municipal project. If there's a single one where the invoices haven't been paid within 30 days, if you could bring them to my attention, we'll ensure it's completely rectified. To date, I have not seen a single municipality who has invoiced us. There is always a desire to get the check up front for the whole amount. We heard that concern. That's why we responded with the gas tax transfer. This year we doubled it, and we front-end loaded half of that in April instead of July, so they would have immediate cash in their hands. And the rest of the invoices we committed to pay within 30 days. If you can name me a single municipality which hasn't been paid, we will see that it's dealt with immediately. I'm told by my officials that the province of Quebec has not submitted a claim for reimbursement under the stimulus fund to date, and because it's the Quebec, c'est la juridiction responsable pour les municipalités.
Of course, Quebec is responsible for municipalities. We have to work with the government, and from the moment we receive an invoice from the government of Quebec, we'll pay within 30 days. This means that the Quebec Federation of Municipalities if it needs an extension to put in a request for infrastructure projects, would have to go through the government of Quebec, which in turn would have to ask you for an extension. Is that what you're saying? Well, of course, the parties in the House of Commons have passed this stimulus package, and this is going to be in effect until March of 2011. As far as I've heard, not a single dollar has been paid late. When municipalities have asked us for money, we've been there with the cash, and we were very pleased to work with our partners, and we made sure that they got their checks. So we've met the deadlines, and we've met, the Prime Minister and I, with the Federation of Municipalities, and we are listening to their concerns. We are hearing what they're saying, and we're willing to work with them. Thank you. Can you tell us how many jobs were created in Quebec under these infrastructure projects? Have you conducted enough research to tell us how many jobs were created? Well, I think the Canadian Federation of Municipalities spoke to that. Jean Perrault, a member of the Federation, conducted a study, and he said for every $1 million in infrastructure spending, 11,000 direct jobs were created. And again, these are just direct jobs. And that is probably the best estimate at this point. Thank you, but Mr. Minister, and with all the respect I have for you, that is simply an estimate on the part of the Canadian Federation of Municipalities, but you personally, as the Minister, and you, the officials, have you conducted a study to see how many jobs have been created? Well, we don't argue with the figures presented by the Canadian Federation of Municipalities. We don't want to micromanage this. We don't want to micromanage different orders.
Or contract, exactly how many jobs. There's 200 people at Infrastructure Canada. We made a decision quite early on that we weren't going to try to micromanage 7,600 different infrastructure projects ranging from 20,000 to 666 million. We just don't have the capacity to micromanage 7,600 contracts. I don't think any province or municipality is asking us to. I haven't heard a single one. If there are, I'm welcome to hear them.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Madame Bourgeois. We now go to Monsieur Good for 8 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My questions are for Minister Merrifield. We're glad to have him here, and we know that, of course, Mr. Baird has been very busy. Now, infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and water treatment plants make up an important part of our economic action plan. Of course, we announced our support for many projects, and I have lent my voice to this support. We've heard a lot about projects in central Canada, such as Ontario. What's happening out west? Can you tell us more about the projects out west?
With the provinces and the municipalities, we've got 280 projects in Alberta on the go that have been announced. That actually adds the federal portion of that is almost $1 billion. It's $975 million. The total cost of those projects are almost leveraged, actually a little bit more than 3 to 1, so it's a little over $3 billion in Alberta alone. When it comes to Saskatchewan, we're talking 390 projects in Saskatchewan. That's federal money is $450 million, but that is leveraged, and it's almost 3 to 1 as well. It's $1.2 billion. So those total values. Now, actually, when you look at our stimulus program, because we want this money out, as I said, timely, targeted, and in Alberta, we're very, very close to being 100% allocated of the stimulus money and announced. And in Saskatchewan, we're also very, very close to the 100%. So we are moving to push the provinces and move on accelerating the $33 billion, which is the Building Canada funds, and some of those funds are accelerated, the base funding as well as the major infrastructure funding. Just to give you an idea what's happening in particularly Alberta, the $100 million in a ring road around Edmonton. That was actually just one intersection was engineered for $300 million as a cost. It was actually tendered and came in at $168 million. So that's the kind of savings we're seeing. When I talk to Minister Ouellette, who is in charge of transportation in Alberta, and Minister Snellgrove, they're telling me that they're getting bids right across the province on all these projects, anywhere from 20 to 50% reduction in actually building them this year compared to this time last year. So we are getting the job done. We're putting many Albertans, many Saskatchewans to work, Saskatchewan people to work, and I believe that's reflective of right across the country.
Monsieur le Ministre.
Mr. Minister, a little earlier in your opening presentation, you alluded to Via Rail, which plays a key role for passengers across the country. This summer in Montreal, I had the pleasure to announce on behalf of our government the new F-40 locomotives. And really, Via Rail workers were so proud of this, and it was clear that it was very important to the future of Via Rail itself. thousands of people travel with Via Rail every day. Since 2007, the government had invested more than $1 billion into Via infrastructure, including the $407 million coming in within the action plan. Mr. Minister, could you please tell us where these projects are at and how passengers are going to benefit?
Via Rail. It's a national institution, and we put, as you've said, almost $1 billion over a 2-year period, 407 of that in this economic action plan. And thank you very much for helping out with the announcement on the, as I said, the F-14 locomotives, a $100 million project. We have another $100 million, well, not quite, $98 million in New Brunswick to be able to deal with 79 light, rapid, comfortable passenger rail cars and to refurbish those. So we are getting a lot of Canadians working, a lot of infrastructure through the dollars that Via Rail is investing to be able to put them on a sustainable course. But the big thing is what we're doing actually on the corridor from Windsor to Quebec City, and the refurbishing not only of the engines and not only of the cars but also of the rail. We have done even more than that, because if you understand the way Via Rail works, they don't have their own lines, so they have to negotiate with CN or CP to be able to run on those lines, and that negotiations that was addressed by the Auditor General in the last study with Via have been dealt with at this stage, and we are progressing very aggressively at refurbishing the lines so that Via can accelerate the speed, and when it's all done, a little bit messy right now, but that's like most renovations. But when it's all done, you're going to have a half-hour faster ride between Toronto and Montreal.
Minutes?
OK, no problem. La CTCA joue un rôle majeur en assurant la sécurité.
Now, again, CATSA plays an important role in ensuring Canada's air safety, and all air travel passengers have to be checked. In the 2009 budget, $209 million were spent on CATSA. And Mr. Minister, could you give us more information on that important investment?
You know, last year it was 240 some million, but there is another 355.7 million investment in CATSA. One of the things you have to understand when it comes to security, we take it very, very seriously, and we're going to have to invest in the best of technologies to make sure that we don't fall behind when it comes to our international counterparts with regard to security at our airports. It's absolutely critical that we keep pace. A lot of this $355.7 million is invested in some of that new technology to get us where we need to go. Is 125 new multi-view X-ray scanners to be able to deal with making sure that luggage and your carry-on luggage is the best of equipment to be able to deal with that. We have added dozens of new screening lines across the country so that we increase the flow and make sure that not only have the state-of-the-art technology, but we're not holding up traffic as we go through it. And we have 10 portable security units, which is something that we brought in for the Olympics to make sure the Olympics are all about the athletes and not about any kind of a threat. So we're prepared for what's going to happen in the Olympics, and we're very proud of where CATSA is going with regard to investment in these dollars. We're putting many Canadians to work as well at the same time, because it's a very labor-intensive work that CATSA does, not only high-cost equipment, but a lot of dollars being spent on employment. So this is indeed a stimulus, but it's also more about security than stimulus when it comes to CATSA.
Merci, Monsieur
Mr. Baird wants to answer. Mr. Baird wants to answer.
Actually, to the matter earlier, out of respect for the member for Willowdale, because of my high regard for the member for Willowdale, because of my high regard and respect for the member for Willowdale and the Vice Chair, the member for Winnipeg Centre, and to prevent my officials from being held against their will, we've cleared our schedules till 5 p.m. so we can all stay, at least the Deputy and I can stay until 5 p.m.
Thank you, Minister. I appreciate that. Thank you. And we will now go over to Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gracious to a fault, as always, Mr. Minister. Yeah. Sir, you will be the first to admit that oversight of the executive is a key function of Parliament. In fact, it's a constitutional right and duty of parliamentarians to rigidly oversee spending of the executive. Now,
You asking me?
no, I think you will agree with me there. I think we could take that as a given, because I know you and I have worked on the Federal
As
Accountability
it is
Act.
for the government to maintain the confidence of the House
Well, that's
every
key.
day.
This is key too. So far, you've been lucky enough to maintain that. Now, with some help from your friends, of course. Yeah, with a little help from your friends. Now, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, I think, was one of the most important things we did in the Federal Accountability Act. We are very proud of that achievement, and it's a necessary office and does a great job. But his frustration was palpable and tangible when he appeared before our committee. And he said the information that he's given to assess on our behalf was, what does he say? The government's report is uneven information, inconsistent in its presentation, lacks the appropriate disclosures necessary, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, it's a polite way of saying he was handed a pile of incomprehensible financial gobbledygook that he's had a difficult time assessing whether the figures he's been given have any relationship whatsoever to the claims being made. You know, and wouldn't you agree with me, Minister, that an effective way to conceal hanky-panky is to couch it in financial reporting that's incomprehensible? So in a way, it gets to be a matter of privilege, in that we're being denied the information we need to do our job as parliamentarians to oversee the executive office. So more and more, it seems like there's this elaborate shell game taking place that we can't figure out if the stimulus spending is achieving the goals you claimed it would achieve. Now, he's put forward some really helpful templates in his report, in his assessment of your third report to Parliament. He suggests if the information were laid out in a way that was easily understood, in plain language financially, we would all be better off. But have you seen the template that he recommends, and have you considered providing information to him in these simple one-page documents that outline the projected spending, the estimated job creation, and the realized benefit from each individual project?
Earlier today, we gave a significant number of amount of information to the Parliamentary Budget Officer. We get the information, obviously, from provinces and municipalities when they do their quarterly reports. I haven't seen the document in front of you, but I'd welcome the opportunity to review it. I, like you, agree that it's important that the check on the government. I do think that you should know and be reminded that every single project that is approved is immediately posted on the website. The project, the location, and the dollar amount, and the funding partners. We think that's substantial. The Parliamentary Budget Officer would like more, and we're very pleased to work with him in that regard.
He's probably begging for mercy right now. I think you dumped 4,000 pages on his desk today, did you not? I mean, we don't know.
We have, I think, across the government, there's some 7,600 projects, so we're dealing with a lot of work, no doubt about it. And just as he can't, just as if you want these one-page forms, when you have 7,600 projects, that means 7,600 pages. And my first priority, I think, is to have the officials working with provinces and municipalities in getting the money dispersed.
But it seems to us at this committee that the government reporting so far has been long on propaganda and short on any meaningful information. There's no yardstick we can measure progress by. We've got an unprecedented amount of money flying out the door at breakneck speed. We were concerned at the front end that there'd be compromising in the due diligence, et cetera, but we were willing to help you fast-track that money to get it out into the community. But at the very least, we need to be able to measure whether or not it's having the desired effect. Let's face it, this spending is driving us into a deficit situation of, billions and billions and billions of dollars. I'm not going to get into the debate about where the money is being spent. I think a lot of NDP ridings actually fared fairly favorably from the spending. So I have no evidence that there's any hanky-panky going on and where the money went. We want to know, though, if the money was necessary, you're checking to see that the journalists got that? Yeah.
Like a little bit, just always like to look at my friend the Badger.
Well, Minister, what can you say that would assure us that the information will be in a clear, transparent, comprehensible manner so that the parliamentarians here can do their job in assessing the veracity of the claims being made by the government, and that it's having the desired effect so that we're not driving ourselves into a sea of red ink without the measurable outcomes, the corresponding measurable outcomes.
Listen, we provide a substantial additional amount of information to the Parliamentary Budget Officer. I've got an indication from you that you're concerned that it might be too much information. I'm happy to review the documents that you've cited and to look at them.
I noticed the Parliamentary Budget Officer also did a comparison study. It's a very interesting report. He actually compared the reporting in the United States and their stimulus package to the way that Canada reports ours, and he found us severely lacking. I urge you to have a look at that page in the report too, because the Obama regime in the States is being a lot more open and transparent, and it's a lot easier to understand not only where the spending is going, but the projected outcomes. In a previous meeting, I used the example of Walmart. Now, if Walmart can tell you every pair of jeans that's sold at every one of their stores in real time on a graph, so sales of jeans is going this way, sales of shoes is going that way, if they can figure out how to do that with far more financial transactions than the Government of Canada, surely we can design a way to be transparent about how we're doing in this particular stimulus package.
I am stunned. I am stunned that you would cite a union-busting large employer who doesn't provide health care to their employers
I should know better than to give you an opportunity like that.
As a site, but I find this most interesting.
As soon as it was out of my mouth,
I find this most interesting. It reminds me of a conversation we had about the type of coffee they sell in the cafeteria.
Oh, yeah.
Madam Chair, I could just add, because I think the concern is, somewhat legitimate in that the concern is whether the federal money is spent appropriately.
That's all we want to know.
And fair enough. One of the comfort zones that gives me great comfort and should give Canadians great comfort is that most of these projects, they're not our projects, they're provincial municipal projects, and most of them have to dig into their pocket and take out a third of the cost of that project. There's a municipality and a province, and all three orders of government have to agree on it. So I don't hear a lot of provinces yelling foul play in any way. They've actually come alongside on these projects and actually are administering the dollars to a large degree. So that should give Canadians some comfort and this House some comfort in where we're going to go, because this is all about Canadians, about jobs, about the economy, and that's our focus.
Yeah.
Martin? No, did you?
Just about.
Yes.
For example, in your province of Manitoba, listen, the government in the Economic Action Plan identified, as the Federation of Canadian Municipalities suggested, that putting money into public works and infrastructure would help create jobs, both from a materials standpoint and from a construction standpoint. That's the premise. We're working collaboratively with the provincial and municipal governments. What I don't think we can do is simply impose a level of bureaucracy and micromanagement to say, great, you're building a new building. Where did that steel come from? How many jobs are created by the steel? Listen, you've got you put a tender out. You got two bids. Which one is going to hire more? Which one is the best cost? There's a fundamental principle that to get people to work and to build public infrastructure, so we have cleaner water, better public transit, safer bridges, better highways, etc. I am loath to say to every municipality they have to hire a bunch of accountants to report back on a day-to-day basis or hour-to-hour basis how many people are being employed. I would encourage each member to look in their own constituencies, look in their own regions, travel around, talk to their municipal leaders, get the list of go to the internet where all the details are, and travel around and see the work that's being done. I think it's pretty positive.
Thank you. Now, before I go to the second round, Mr. Martin, since the minister has agreed that they will stay here till 5 p.m., would you like to withdraw your motion? Could I have unanimous consent that this motion be withdrawn? Yes? Unanimous consent from the government side that we're withdrawing the motion, forcing the... Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll proceed now to the second round. Madame Foote for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was interesting listening to the parliamentary budget officer at our last committee meeting when he talked about we sensed his frustration at not being able to get the information he felt he needed to do his job. And his only recourse was to rely on committees like ours, in fact, to get the information for him, to enable him to do the job. So I'm pleased to hear that you have, in fact, dropped off information for him. And you referenced the expenditure by the U.S. in terms of having a very good reporting mechanism. But in fact, the budget parliamentary officer told us that there were a number of countries that had a much more robust quarterly reporting than Canada does. And I think when we're talking about the significant expenditure of taxpayers' dollars, it's all about being accountable and transparency in how that money is being spent. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're asking for these answers. I'd like to know if, in the information that you dropped off to the parliamentary budget officer, you talk about the project, the location, and the amount or the value of the project. Did you as well include the amount of money that has actually flown on, has actually been already spent on the projects? Not just the value of the project, but how much has already been spent?
Sure. Our goal is to have the most robust delivery of the stimulus, not necessarily the most robust internet site. And I think if you compare Canada to the other G8 industrialized countries, G7 industrialized countries, we would compare very favorably. I can't tell you on a day-to-day basis. I mentioned Quebec hasn't submitted their first invoice yet. I can't tell you where every single project is because they submit it by invoice. In Newfoundland and Labrador, we gave them their full per capita spending. 4 months ago in Newfoundland, they had the highest number of government tenders ever go out. Until they submit the invoice, we can't say on a day-to-day basis whether the steel has arrived, whether the workforce have been paid. I could call upon my Associate Deputy Minister, John Forster, to give you a better sense with respect to your question.
That you gave Mr. Page includes the amount of money that's been spent to date on all of the projects that have been approved and announced.
Thank you. I'm happy to kind of describe what we've given him. As the Minister mentioned, today we dropped off over 4,400 pages of information on 3,000 projects that were approved under the stimulus fund. What the parliamentary budget officer asked for was two things in September. One was information on the projects that were approved, which is what we've provided to him. The second thing he asked for when he asked for it in September did not exist. He asked for the information on the claims that had been provided in the quarterly claims submitted by provinces. At the time he asked it in September, we did not have complete claim information provided by all provinces and territories. So it was not possible for us to respond to him.
So at this point, then, the information you've given him does not have the actual money that's been spent to date on the infrastructure projects.
So what we've provided him today is a list of all the stimulus projects approved, where they are, what the project is, the cost of the project, the federal provincial contribution. Sorry, I'll get to your answer. What we've indicated to him is, as we are now going through, this is the first cycle of claims under a brand new program on 3,000 projects. So we're going back with the provinces and territories, reviewing the information they've provided, clarifying it. They have questions, we have questions. So as that data is verified and accurate and complete, we will then be providing it to him over the coming weeks on the claim information that's provided. So we've given him a complete data set on all the projects, and we've done that within 37 days of his request. I would point out other requests responded to him range anywhere from 25 days to 125 days.
I appreciate that, Mr. Forster. I guess I was looking for yes or no, or if you could give us a dollar figure, and apparently you can't because of the mechanism of the reporting.
Until Newfoundland submits their invoice, I drove by a project this morning, public transit expansion of some bus shelters and a baseline station for Ottawa Carleton Transit. And there's a significant amount of construction going on. There's people at work. The City of Ottawa has not yet submitted their invoice to the province. So we lack the 200 people who work at Infrastructure Canada and the 7,600 projects across government would have been funded until the province submits the invoice for payment. Just like the home renovation tax credit. Not a dollar has been spent because people haven't submitted their income tax forms yet.
But I would expect if we're, a year into and construction has already taken place on some of these projects, that dollars have been spent.
Agreed.
Invoices have been in, and have been paid, I would hope, for some of those
every invoice that's been paid, we receive is paid within 30 days. You can talk to your government in Newfoundland and Labrador. I think they'll speak that the relationship has been very constructive and very productive.
Madame Bourgeois or Monsieur Dorien? Monsieur Dorien, 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is for Minister Baird. Media have reported that stimulus spending was not spread consistently across the country. In your opinion, has the action plan spending been spread fairly and equitably across the country?
Fund, for example, it's been fairly well distributed. Others have said that. Mr. Martin, the Vice Chair of this committee, just said that. In the case of your province of Quebec, got the per capita share. In Quebec's case, they do have the law which requires the federal government in areas of provincial jurisdiction to work with the province. That's not something I have a problem with. I respect that. We work with the province. We don't make all of the decisions about how the money is spent. I think, generally speaking, we try to ensure that it's spread evenly around the country. Does that mean by electoral district? Not necessarily. For example, here in Ottawa, there's a convention centre. It's happened to be built 100 metres inside the riding of Ottawa-Vanier, but will be a benefit to the entire region, frankly, on both sides of the river. There could be Carleton University's building is across the river from Ottawa South riding, but it will benefit people from all across the region, indeed the country. So generally speaking, I think we've tried to make an effort to ensure that it's generally fairly well distributed. It won't be perfect on an electoral boundary by electoral boundary basis, but I think generally speaking, when you look at all the regions of Quebec, when you look at all the regions of Canada, we've tried to ensure that it's, by and large, fairly distributed. Now, we're only one player of the three. Some municipalities requested very little money, others requested substantially more money. Some municipalities came to the table with phenomenal projects. One municipality requested money to build a new house for an elephant at their zoo. I didn't think that was a very good idea to fund, and we didn't. Depending on the quality of the projects, I can tell I'm a former environment minister. Quebec has put great priority on clean water, and where we have a partnership with them on something called PRECO, where we work very well, and they've responded to, I think, a pretty core infrastructure need very, very well.
The third interim report, or rather, the government expects that 200,000 jobs will be either maintained or created. Can you tell us exactly how many jobs have been created, following the implementation of the action plan until today?
I'm talking about the infrastructure stimulus fund. If you want to talk about the credit facilities, if you want to talk about the auto strategy, if you want to talk about the community adjustment fund and the investments in forestry, I think I'd accept the best number I can accept is the one from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. For every $1 billion we spent on infrastructure, that it creates 11,000 jobs. And I should correct the record. I was informed that I said a million. I meant 11,000 per billion is the best number for us to fall back on.
Sur les 220 000.
Of the 220,000, 11,000?
Economic action plan, of which, for example, the infrastructure stimulus fund is one. There are credit facilities, there are tax reductions, there are the auto strategy efforts with respect to forestry, there are efforts with respect to the community adjustment program. There are many. There's the mortgage program where the government bought mortgage to add more liquidity for small businesses and families. It's not exclusively infrastructure. Some people think that some people equate the economic action plan as just meaning one infrastructure. In fact, it's much broader. It's one of the things under the umbrella. We've also tried building Canada. It took a long time to get the agreement signed with every province. It took a lot of time to get making decisions. We've had a major acceleration of building Canada, where things are happening in a big way now, and that's part of the action plan to accelerate. We've said to Quebec we're happy to move as quickly as possible on the 7-year action plan to get projects approved so that engineers and architects can get to work, so that the tenders can be issued, so that we can sustain economic growth. I think there has been a problem over the last 20 years by our government, frankly, earlier and previous governments, to get things going. And that's why we've really put our foot on the gas gas pedal with respect to infrastructure.
Merci. We now go to Mr. Anders, and I guess you'll be sharing your time with Mr. Brown.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. We'll see how much time I take here, but just a few things I'd like to get on the record, I guess. One, I'm very excited by Mr. Martin being as big a fan of Walmart as he is. I like the minister, am impressed, and I think that Mr. Martin and many in his party should come to embrace Walmart the way that he has. I'm quite impressed with that. I'm also impressed with the opposition generally today. I think that the more time they focus on the economy, that's wonderful. I think the economy should be the central issue of the next election campaign, and I think that as the Canadian public focuses on the economy as much as the opposition has, the Conservative Party will be elected with a larger number of seats. So I think that's fantastic. I'd like to ask the two ministers two particular questions. One, Minister Merrifield, I know that Alberta does not have many opposition MPs. If memory serves me correctly, I think we only have one. But if you have any information with regard to how opposition MPs or MP in the province of Alberta have felt they've been treated, that would be lovely. If you could tell us, I mean, we only have one as far as I know, and I'm sure they must have some thoughts with regard to how they're being treated in the province of Alberta, that one NDP member in the opposition. And for our other minister today, and I realize he's about to come back to the table, I'm sure, any second now. All right, I'm going to ask the question anyhow, and I'm sure that he'll be caught up with regard to what's happening. As far as another opposition riding, I know that in our last committee meeting, I talked about the LRT program that's going on in the City of Toronto, and our chair, who's also a member of the opposition, expressed surprise. Didn't know, for example, that there's $333 million, and I'll add $330,000 on top of that, that's being spent for LRT extension. If I can quote, I said, I don't hear the chair or the opposition members taking issue with the $333 million being spent in her riding in Don Valley East. The chair's response is, we have $333 million? Then I said, for the LRT expansion. Then she said, in my riding? So I'm wondering if maybe
we're obviously not communicating and advertising enough. We've got to do a better job.
Minister. I'd like the two ministers to talk about how they feel about those particular ridings, the one for the chair here in opposition, and also for the one opposition member in Alberta.
I think what we have to understand is what we're trying to do is actually build infrastructure for all Canadians, and it's difficult when you get into some of these large urban settings. Is an LRT infrastructure project or a ring road project, is that specific to the riding that it's actually in, or does it benefit the whole entire area? We're seeing that in many of the urban settings, and unfortunately some of the opposition parties try to play silly with the numbers because it's a benefit to everyone, it's a benefit to Canadians, even in some of the rural major highways or major highway corridors, which help perhaps even the neighboring province as much as even the province that it's in, because it's through routes for a lot of goods. I say that because that's kind of the case actually in the riding that you're suggesting, which is the only opposition riding in evidence throughout Strathcona. There's $14.8 million there that goes to a GO Centre. Well, it's a disproportionate amount of money actually in that riding compared to the neighboring ridings around it, and it's because it is a university, part of a project onto a university. So it's silly to get into the numbers as, well, this riding have a little bit more than that riding, because what we're really focused in on is what is in the best interest of infrastructure long term, giving us the competitive edge coming out of this recession far into the future. And to do that, you have to put politics aside and start looking at what is in the best interest. The provinces have done that, so do municipalities, so do mayors of cities. And so we're just very pleased to be able to come alongside, to be able to help out, to stimulate the economy at a time where jobs need to be created and good projects are being created. And so I guess that's the best way I can answer that.
Just to respond about the LRT in Scarborough, and Don Valley East. You know, the City of Toronto has a master transit plan. We work with them. The Mayor identified the LRT as the #1 priority for building Canada. We accepted his suggestion. I suppose people in South Scarborough will complain that they don't get enough as much as North Scarborough, but that's where the city chose to build the LRT. You know, I look at one investment. There's some with respect to Union Station. The federal government's putting about $120 million into the revitalization and expansion of Union Station. That just happens to be one block inside the riding of Trinity Spadina. But that investment will be great news for people in Etobicoke. It'll be great news for commuters from Oakville. It'll be great news for commuters from York Region. It'll be great news for people in North Toronto, for downtown. It's a resource. It's probably the most important building in the province, and it'll have great benefit for so many people. And it's not just one single. It's not just one single riding.
You've got members of your caucus wanting to ask you questions, so I have to go quickly.
You have to go to the other party because they want to
well, and then they come to them. Madame Foote, I understand you're sharing your time with Ms. Findlay.
Well, I meant to mention to Minister Merrifield, I was really pleased to hear about the $407 million spent on Via Rail when we've got so many issues going on with Marine Atlantic, but also to tell you that it really didn't leave a good impression on the people of Newfoundland and Labrador when the 10%er arrived, since we have no trains in Newfoundland and Labrador. So money for Marine Atlantic is really what we're looking for.
Yeah, I'd like to answer. Marine Atlantic is a very important corridor, and
there was no question.
Are you looking for an answer for? Well, I'd like to respond to Marine Atlantic because Marine Atlantic is absolutely critical to the people of Atlantic Canada, and particularly Newfoundland, and we have a long-range plan to be able to deal with that.
Madame Findlay.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. No, apologies, that wasn't a question. That was just a moment.
That wasn't an answer. That was
a frustration on the part of my colleague. I think well deserved. First, I want to thank you for agreeing to stay an extra half an hour. I would like to thank the Minister for his magnanimity in allowing your departmental officials to grant us an entire extra half an hour. It is much appreciated. My question is for Madame Baltacciolio. I think I got that right, hopefully. You've seen the reporting being done in the United States under the stimulus package and the detail of amount, not just the list of projects and the where and amounts committed, but also the actual money being spent, jobs created. Is that information in the Canadian government? Do we have that information? And if we don't, why do we not have that information in the Canadian government?
The way that our program is designed, it's basically we have the website and the information, which I'm sure that all members have seen. And as my colleague John Forster has said, that we have the basic project information and we get reports from our partners. This is a partnerships where our partners are reporting on actual projects.
But
it is not exactly the same kind of information.
I'm not asking for the information on how much your partners have spent. We are asking how much this government has spent. You cannot create a job if you can't write somebody a check for his or her wages. So we are asking the government for how much money has been spent so far. We have heard announcement after announcement. The government is benefiting from all this wonderful pat ourselves on the back announcements. We continue to ask for the detail of how much has the federal government spent. We understand you only cut the checks after you've received the invoices, but you can't tell me that you haven't a record of the checks that the federal government has actually signed. Fundamental questions. How much money has this government actually spent so far so that we can have some idea of how many jobs have been created? The parliamentary budget officer has asked, we have asked. A simple question. Can you tell us how much money the federal government has actually spent so far under this program?
I'll ask the deputy.
Minister, I was actually asking
I'll ask the deputy to respond. I did want to correct the record. You say if the federal government hasn't yet issued a check, no jobs can be created. Once we make an announcement, those municipalities, those provinces, those other not-for-profit groups are free to begin to spend money immediately. We say, please do not wait for you've got the green light to go. And
Minister,
so the jobs can be created, and I'd like to ask the deputy to turn over.
I asked the deputy minister a question. I'd really appreciate an answer. Thank you.
Sure. We don't have exactly how much they have spent until the bills arrive. There is going to be, I appreciate it, we don't spend until we get invoices.
But when you spend, you must know what you've spent. I'm asking
of course
what
we
has
do. For example,
I don't ask the provincial government.
I'm trying to give you examples of where the spending is. For example, there has been advances that have been paid. For example, we have that number.
Then why do we not have that number? Those are the numbers we're asking for.
I believe, Minister, you have mentioned the advances to provinces and.
We have not had an answer to the simple question, and we've been asking for months. Simple question: how much money has the federal government spent to date, so that we can compare that number to the announcements that are being taken full advantage of? Simple question: how much money has the federal government actually spent to date?
Okay, but maybe if I can explain the way the programs work. When the commitment is done, our partners start the work. And when they start the work, that means that economic activity starts taking place.
Understood.
When actually they have, I don't know, hired engineering firms or doing certain kind of construction, and when it is time when they have to report, they send us the bills, which we pay. So in terms of economic activity, we have the full picture of it, and which we have given it to the parliamentary budget officer in terms of the projects. We don't have the actual spending until the bills come in. So I think that you might want to look at spending versus commitment. There's too many pieces of the puzzle.
We just want federal spending, and we don't have the answer.
Yes, Mr. Jean.
If I know we both were elected by Canadians, and I have a job that's very similar to hers, but is she telling me that she gets paid before she works for a month? Because that's how I don't get paid.
Are you posing? Sorry,
no,
are you
I'm just
the
curious.
chair? You say
it's
there's
a point of order. She mentioned that people don't work without getting paid in advance, and
so your point
that's how
of
my
order
job works. So.
Is.
Yeah, me too. So I was just kind of curious.
Your point of order is actually I wanted to know what standing order did she violate? She's allowed to ask.
It was a point of order.
So she is allowed to ask the questions like you are allowed to ask the questions. So I really want.
She just mentioned that a job wasn't created without money going first, and I'm sure she worked for 30 days before she got paid. That's what I do. So.
And you can look at the blues. Mr. Holder, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, and I just have a comment and a question, and I know that Mr. Brown would like to be able to have a comment and a question as well. Thank you. I was part of the group in the past meeting that had the opportunity to listen to the parliamentary budget officer, and I want to remind members around the table what Mr. Page had said with respect to the report. And he acknowledged that he'd received 3 reports thus far, and each report was better than the previous one. And he had no reason to believe that the 4th wouldn't even be better still. He indicated he was looking forward to receiving the reports, and as he had requested. And frankly, personally, I was quite pleased that the parliamentary budget officer took what I thought was an optimistic view, and I think a positive view. And I need to put that on the table because the politics of politics sometimes doesn't get the complete story out. So here's my question, if I can. I come from a business background, and I have a sense of running a multi-million-dollar company, a small multi-million-dollar company. But having said that, in terms of cash flows in and out, and it's a very complex process. I'm not sure that all the folks around the table are aware of the magnitude of such a project like this, with some almost 8,000 projects out there. I mean, that's phenomenal. I'd like to compliment, actually, if I might, all of our guests here, our department officials, our ministers. I think it's a huge undertaking to do this as promptly as you have. What I've also heard around the table, and again, I've referenced before some gotcha politics that frankly I think needs to be taken out of the equation in this. even broad references that somehow preferential treatment's been given to government writings and the like. And I'm just curious, perhaps I could ask Mr. Baird this. Are you aware of any provinces, sir, or municipal leaders that have somehow complained that infrastructure dollars might have been directed for Conservative Party gain?
You know what, I'm actually pretty proud. When you look on balance at all the infrastructure programs under our department, we've been, I think, we've been trying to be careful to ensure that all areas benefit. Frankly, if our goal is to create jobs and we would spend the money all in one part of the country, every contractor would be quickly busy, and there'd be a lineup. And which wouldn't spread the wealth. I mean, if you look at the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, we have had some not always the best relationship with the province, but Mr. Williams, the Premier, put politics aside. It was the first government we came to an agreement with on how to spend the infrastructure spending. And you know what? The jobs were created a little bit faster as a result of that. If you look at the province of Ontario, and I used to sit in the Ontario legislature in opposition as the critic to the current Minister of Infrastructure. I think we've put aside politics and worked fairly well together. I think if you look at the province of Manitoba, with the Dewar government and now with the Selinger government, I think on balance we work pretty well together. I think if you look at the province of Quebec, and the Premier of Quebec has made some comments recently at an announcement in Pontiac, I think by and large we've worked fairly well. We've been able to work. I haven't heard a single complaint from a senior level from any of the provinces or territories. We've managed to work with them well. We've given and we've tried to distribute it fairly. Newfoundland and Labrador, despite the fact that it didn't elect or return a single government member, got its full per capita share because that's the approach that we took. Now, is every square inch going to get the exact same amount? Probably not. But on balance, I think it's been fairly well distributed. I think if you look around the country, you talk to Premier Williams. If you talk to Denise Savoy, the member for Victoria, she pushed hard for a project that I was able to announce recently the other day. If you look in Halifax, we announced a new library. If you look at Madame Gagnon-Tremblay in the province of Quebec, we've been able to work together, and we have always ensured we respect provincial jurisdiction because that's something that is fundamentally important. I think if you look at the investments we've made in Sault Ste. Marie, if you look at, I was in Vancouver East, the east side of Vancouver, with the member for Vancouver East, making 2 announcements to help Aboriginal Canadians who live in her constituency. I think by and large we haven't been perfect, but we've been pretty good. But it's a bit much to hear someone like Ken Dryden get up and say you're not spending the money fairly when his riding got the largest amount of infrastructure in the country. So I think by and large it's been pretty fairly well distributed. I'm pretty proud of that. I think Canadians in this unprecedented economic downturn don't just expect, they demand that their elected representatives work together, and we have seen an unprecedented amount of that. Frankly, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities have been incredibly complimentary of the officials within my department for the excellent job that they've done. They have worked their butts off with their team to make these decisions. I couldn't ask for a stronger team at the federal level. We couldn't ask for better cooperation with provinces and territories. Every single one of them of any political party have put aside the petty politics, and I think that speaks well of all of them. And frankly, when people see different parties work together, they're really pleased.
We have a last very quick question, because the time is up for them. Okay.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Baird, I want to make sure I understand what your officials are saying. They're saying that they can only come up with concrete figures once a project has been approved and an invoice has been sent. However, I have 2 things to say to that today. Be it members of Parliament or Canadians in general, we don't have the figures because we're waiting for the provinces and municipalities. However, up until now, you must have received some commitments, and that might give Canadians and parliamentarians a good idea of how much has been approved and spent. So surely you would have some numbers for us. On October 9th last, the Public Service Commission of Canada published an audit. It said that out of 45 files or cases, these files did not contain criteria which met essential qualifications. In light of that, now of course the action plan required the hiring of employees. However, it seems to be very difficult to find employees or people who meet essential qualifications to be hired in the public service. So this action plan was brought in very quickly, and all the programs as well. So how can we trust the numbers you're giving us and the political mileage you're gaining from the numbers you're presenting us with? It seems that we can't even counter what you're telling us. You can tell Canadians whatever you want right now, and we don't have the tools to see whether that is accurate or not. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Baird.
We have great respect for your role as a member of Parliament, but you just said two things. One, we weren't giving you any numbers, and two, how can we trust the numbers we're giving you? Which is very difficult. Every time a commitment is made, the starting pistol goes off, that money can be expended. If the project can't start for 2 months because they have to order the steel and they have to order the concrete, obviously they don't pay for that steel or concrete until it arrives, and then an invoice is made. I would encourage you, if you seek, we're third partners, if you seek clarification from the provincial government of Quebec, if you talk to individual municipalities and ask them how their projects are going, if there's any concerns about that, for example, in your constituency or elsewhere, I would be very open to responding to any concern. I think the one biggest discussion we have before any decision is made is the project eligible for funding. And on rare occasions, we have to seek an exemption, or there's a funding amount which can be somewhat different depending on the project. You know, for example, we did a library in Halifax where we gave $18 million, as I recall, and the province only gave $13, and the municipality had to come up with the difference. So, you know, there might be the odd exception that has to be made, such as that. But to my knowledge, I'll turn over to the deputy if she can add anything else.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, just one, the member has asked for the commitments. That's exactly what we have given to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, and that's also on our website. Regarding the Public Service Commission audit, that the department has received the audit, has accepted the audit, and we have an action plan in place. However, I would really like to point to the fact that the audit time frame was January 06 to August 08, which is before the Economic Action Plan has started. By the time the Economic Action Plan has started, the department had taken significant steps to basically bring more capacity into a relatively small, however, very mighty department. The people in my department are proud of the work that they do, and they're very honored that they're part of delivering projects that mean quite a lot for Canadian economy. So we're very proud, and we stand behind our numbers in terms of whatever numbers we have.
If I could just add one more point.
I will give you, Minister, I will give you 1 minute to wrap up, so if you could give me just a second. I've been listening to all the questions that have been asked, and generally I think the confusion comes because we do not have a clear idea of A, the approval process, or the application process, the approval, the commitment, and then the spending and the outcomes. So if you have a flow chart that clarifies how this happens, and I think there's been a very relevant question asked, and that was, since March 09, this stimulus funding has been in place. So have there been invoices submitted, and how much? So if that could be given to us by the officials, because it appears that the Parliamentary Budget Officer still doesn't have it. So if you have claims, if you don't have claims, just tell us claims have not arrived, or claims have arrived and here is what we have paid, because you must have cut checks. So if that could be done, I think it will clarify, and we won't have to go through this round again. We would really like to bring the study to an end. And we appreciate you being here. We appreciate that you have, you have your right to say what the government wants to do. And but we would like the public servants to be honest and open and say, this is what we have done. This is the reality. Here are the numbers. Here is how you can verify. So with that, I would request Minister Merrifield, if you have any closing remarks to make.
Sure. Well, thank the committee for their questions. I think they're valid and good. What is important is to understand that what we're trying to do is get Canadians through this global economic slowdown in the best way we possibly can, creating as many jobs as we can. When it comes to the numbers, it's not so important whether, you know, the bill was submitted last month and paid this month, as it is that when the starting gun goes is when the project was announced, and the municipalities and provinces are prepared to move on those projects. The money will come and flow in due process. And that's, we have professional people in the department that take their job very seriously, and that's why they are doing that job very professionally and making sure that due diligence is done on this. And I think that Canadians can be rest assured that that's the way it's being run.
Thank you, Minister.
I also, in response, I think the question was rather thoughtful from the Bloc Québécois representative on the committee. Are we just to take the federal government's word for it? I mean, we're sending a substantial amount of information on the web and here today and to the parliamentary budget officer. I'd encourage each member of the committee, whether it's the chair, to sit down with the mayor, your mayor of your municipality, sit down with Mayor Miller and ask him how the relationship has been. To sit down with the provincial minister of infrastructure and ask him about the relationship and get specific on-the-ground progress reports. I think that would be of great benefit to you. I would encourage my friend Mr. Martin to sit down with Ron Lemieux or Greg Selinger in Manitoba and the city of Winnipeg. Ask them how it's gone, and I could go on to each member of the committee. I think there has been a pretty good partnership, and that's a significant check to ensure that taxpayers' dollars are spent wisely and well.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you for staying till 5 o'clock. As you can, before you leave, as you can appreciate, the only frustration was when things are stated and we can't see the real dollars. That's where our issue is. So we will be sending a note over to the Deputy Minister for clarification and for information that we have requested. Oui, Madame.
Madam Chair, I just want to point out that I regret to say that as a Member of Parliament today, I don't deal with Quebec's municipalities and provinces. I deal with the Minister. I understand that you respect Quebec's jurisdiction, which I greatly appreciate. In the same manner, I represent the jurisdictions of the mayors and the province of Quebec, so I did not appreciate an answer which was given to me by the Minister. I'm not here only to represent the, rather, I'm here to represent my constituents and take my case to you, Mr. Minister.
It feels like if we're going to go through rounds again, I'd like to have another opportunity.
We're not going through the grounds. I just recognized because I thought she had some.
I thought it was a point of order as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Suspend the meeting for 10 seconds before we have some committee business to listen. Committee members, can you please take your seat so we can proceed with something? Mr. Jean, the floor is yours. Mr. Jean, you had put your hand up. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to refer the Chair towards page 827 of Marleau Montpetit in relation to the role of the chairs, specifically what the role of the chair is. The chair of a committee is responsible for recognizing members and witnesses who seek the floor and ensuring that any rules established by the committee concerning the apportioning of speaking time are respected. Furthermore, the chair is also responsible for maintaining order in committee proceedings. However, the chair does not have the power to censor disorder or decide questions of privilege. This can only be done by the House upon receiving a report from the committee. I've looked at the role of chair, the role of vice chairs, acting chairs, elections, etc., and I see nowhere where specifically the chair can ask questions directly of the witnesses. Now, I am a little bit curious of that because I have seen that many, many times, and I was wondering, you have the clerk next to you, and certainly it seems like it would be an appropriate situation, but it does not refer to it in Marleau and Montpetit, and I was wondering if that could be clarified.
If you go to, since you have it, you can go to page 862 and look at the two paragraphs, testimony and the prior before that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Just want to let you know that So that the committee members know that the next order of business for next week, November 3rd, where's the paper?
Where's the paper?
We had requested the Minister of Treasury Board to come, but he's not able to come, so he's going to send his deputy minister, and I think we are fine with it because we wanted to do the study on the advertising aspect of it. So I just want to let you know the clerk of the Privy Council is confirmed to appear along with another official. The President of the Treasury Board is unable to attend, so Ms. Michelle Doré, Secretary to the Treasury Board, is ready to come. And Thursday, November 5th, we have the Public Service Commissioner confirmed. Okay? Any other business?
Particular page, if I may, that committee members are usually given priority in the questioning of witnesses over the chair. Is that indeed the normal course of the business in this, or I'm just asking because the allocation for witnesses is obviously all witnesses. Mr. Brown, for instance, hasn't asked a question in a month, and quite frankly, the questioning that you did have was, in my mind, over 10 minutes in length, and certainly I can check the blues to check that out. Just your interference in between each of the questioning, and I'm wondering, it seems to me that your role as chair is actually taking up quite a bit of time of the committee.
I would suggest that you look at the time frame that I spent. I introduced I welcomed the ministers. I advised them what we are here to study. The only time I will interject is when I find that the witnesses and the members are at crossroads, when they don't understand each other. But I do not think I actually watch the clock. And Mr. Brown had his time not given. There's an allocation. There's a process. And
well, I agree. There is an allocation, and it's actually covered by the rules, Madam Chair.
Let me finish talking. If there is an allocation process, I follow it. And if the minister keeps on talking for 7 minutes, I cannot stop him if you guys don't stop him. If he's responding to your question and you're allowing him to do it, that's not up to me. You can interject and stop any witness if you feel that that witness is not responding to your question. So that's exactly what I do. And if you feel that the chair is, if you feel it, that's your opinion. I'm sorry, but I have the prerogative to interject when I have to.
I'm not talking about the interjection, Madam Chair. I'm talking about the questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
A committee, not just the two of you. I wanted to add to the same point that Brian raises, that I've been a member of Parliament for 5 terms, and sat on, I think, 12 different committees. I've never seen a committee where the chair did not take the liberty to interject from time to time, especially if they thought there was something that the committee should hear that they're not hearing in the course of questioning. And in those committees, the chair doesn't always wait until everyone else has had their turn. Sometimes the chair even interjects, after the first speaker has their questioning, the chair may say, have one little comment, and then another one later on, and then at the end may take one complete round to themselves if they chose. So it certainly is the practice and the norm, notwithstanding what Marleau Montpetit says.
Yes, Mr. G.
And I understand that would be the opinion of somebody that's been here for 5 terms. I've been here 3, and he's a member of a party that gets 3 rounds for every one opportunity that a government member or, for instance, official opposition gets. What I was asking, well, you do get more rounds, but Mr. Martin, I'm
in a whole day. Did you notice that?
Mr. Jean, I think what you are arguing is moot, really. If you read carefully, it says, following the opening statement, there is a period of questioning. Questions may be asked by any member of the committee. The chair may, on occasion, also participate in the questions of witnesses. Other members of the House in attendance at committee meetings may also be permitted to pose questions. And I think I am in my
It continues,
right.
though, Madam Chair. It does continue. This depends in part on the amount of time the committee has accorded to dealing with each witness and the number of committee members who wish to ask questions. Committee members are usually given priority in the questioning of witnesses, end quote.
I think he's referring to the fact that the non-members of the committees are allowed to ask questions. Committee members who are members
exactly.
are given priority to non-members.
Yes, the clerk is explaining that you've not understood it well. It is that non-committee members should not ask questions over committee members. It does not talk about the chair. So with that, I will end debate unless anybody else has any issues. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.